Hi, hello, are you lost? I'm lost. That does sound about right. Well, I am awfully cozy now, so I hope that you don't mind me staying a little while. Hello everyone, I am Ashleigh and I am from the channel A Frolic Through Fiction, where I do of course talk about all things bookish, but I also do some general lifestyle vlogs, and I love all things to do with fantasy, dark academia, and also the witchy cozy vibe as well. So I'm here to take over book break today and just have a nice little cozy catch up to chat to you about not only some books, but some cozy games as well. Gaming is something that I have been getting into more and more recently. I still do consider myself a relative newbie because I know that there are some intense gamers out there and a lot of gamers within the booktube community, so I don't want to be sat here tooting my own horn or anything, but you know, we're a safe space around here. We will accept all level of gamers. And I do find that it is the cozy games that I generally lean towards. More often than not, you will find me with a book in my hands, but if it's not a book, then it is my Nintendo Switch or my Xbox. Either way, it is the cozy games that I gravitate towards, and I have a feeling a lot of you guys will too. So what we're going to do today is match up some book recommendations with some cozy games, because nothing is better than having a slow day, especially on a weekend, where you can just switch between reading a book and playing a game, and that is all you've got on your agenda for that day. So we're going to take that idea one step further and pair up a book and a game so that we can have just the ultimate cozy vibes going forward to achieve maximum levels of comfort and escapism, because isn't that exactly what we all need sometimes? So grab yourself a warm drink of your choice. I just have your standard Yorkshire tea. Get comfy and let's talk all things cozy games and books. So first up we have a pairing, which I think just embodies this entire idea, because the first game we're going to talk about is Coffee Talk. This is a game for those of us who want to live the romanticised version of a barista life. The people who romanticise the idea of making your silly little coffee in a cute little coffee shop, but also with a dash of whimsy and fantasy mixed in there, because this isn't just any coffee shop. This is a coffee shop where the customers are elves, orcs, mermaids, vampires, all types of fantasy creatures. Just working as a barista in this coffee shop, you get to be part of the scandals and the social lives that are surrounding these characters, and you get to influence the stories as you go along. And so it does seem rather fitting, doesn't it, that this one can be paired up quite nicely with Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is a much beloved book, and one that has become the ringleader for the cozy fantasy vibe that people are quite avidly looking for nowadays, because Legends and Lattes follows a battle-weary orc called Viv, who is retiring to a life of somewhat comfort to run her own coffee shop and help introduce the people living in this fantasy world to the joys of coffee. She does find though that it can be quite hard to leave that life behind, especially when we have so many travellers coming through telling their tales of very similar battles. This is a story that contains LGBTQ plus rep, lots of whimsy and heartwarming moments as well, and I imagine that it's going to make you want to visit a coffee shop while you're reading and eat all the pastries possible, because this is just the best sort of feeling to have. You can just imagine it right now, heading out on a weekend, taking this book to a coffee shop, taking your Nintendo Switch to a coffee shop, or even just returning home, playing Coffee Talk, and just having the best day. This is the perfect pairing for the cozy coffee aesthetic kind of day, and I don't think you'll regret spending your day with these two. Next up we have The Sims. Now, The Sims is a game which I'm sure that every single one of us has played at least once in our life. There is something just very, very addictive about that game. It is quite literally a simulation game. That is where the name Sims came from. You create a person, you create a house, and you just live this virtual life controlling this tiny person as they go around living life. And somehow it is just incredibly addictive, and you will lose many, many hours to it. I speak from experience. It is just bizarrely addictive to live vicariously through a screen. And so, what better pairing for this one than The Minuscule Mansion of Myra Malone by Audrey Burgess, which, by the way, impeccable title, we love the alliteration. In this book we are following Myra Malone, who runs a very famous blog which basically details the life and the story surrounding this minuscule mansion. She uploads blog posts in which stories take place within this mansion, and people seem to be really invested in the story behind this. They are avidly watching for new blog posts, almost as if it's a reality TV show that people just can't really look away from. And Myra herself is also deeply invested within this mansion, though for different reasons, because she realises that The rooms within this mansion seem to appear, disappear, and change all of their own will, and she doesn't really know why. Things get even weirder, however, when a guy called Alex ends up getting in touch with her, saying that the story she seems to be narrating on this blog seems to mirror his life. It's his family home that is being represented within this miniature mansion, and they don't really understand how that can be the case, so the two end up coming together and trying to figure out exactly what on earth is going on behind this miniature mansion. I think we've all at some point had a thought or a conversation, or even heard someone say, imagine if someone was controlling us right now. Imagine if we were all Sims. Why do I feel like a Sim that's just had my last action cancelled? I think we've all had that stream of consciousness. So imagine if you then discovered a virtual blog that seemed to mirror your life. Like, how convinced would you be that you are stuck in a simulation? I just think it's a really fun concept to play around with, and this book does exactly that. It features a weird and wonderful magical mansion and asks the question about who's controlling things. So with that in mind, I feel like this one would be the perfect read if you are a fan of The Sims. Okay, next up we have Dreamlight Valley, which is just so whimsical and wonderful. Dreamlight Valley is a hybrid simulation and adventure game that is owned by Disney, where everybody has forgotten the magic of Disney, and it's up to you to help recover the stories and help people remember the magic. This is a game that's full of nostalgia, magic, fairy tales, but also has a bit of a darker element as well, as some of the more villainous characters make themselves known. And so to pair with this one, I would definitely recommend Heartless by Marissa Meyer. This is Marissa Meyer's retelling of Alice in Wonderland, but from the Queen of Hearts perspective, which already is just such an interesting perspective. We love a villain around here. And of course, while the Queen of Hearts is known as a villainous figure of Alice's story, she was once upon a time just a girl. She was somebody before she was given that title, and so Marissa Meyer takes her story and tells you a possible origin behind her tale, and showing what exactly might have led to her becoming the tyrannical Queen of Hearts. With both the game and the book providing this fairy tale-esque atmosphere and the sense of magic while also having a villainous streak to them, I do think that this would be the perfect book if you are a fan of Disney's Dreamlight Valley, because these are both stories of seeing the darker origins to some of the more fairy tale-esque atmospheres that we are very familiar and very much in love with. Now, I think we've gone on long enough without mentioning the ultimate cozy game. The cozy game that took over the world for at least a year solid. Animal Crossing went and did that. The best way I can describe Animal Crossing is like The Sims, but with cute animals. You have an island and you're given tasks to help build up the skills that you need to create a better island. So you can landscape this island, you can create your own home, create your own character, and it's just the sort of game that you can very easily lose many hours to, doing seemingly meaningless tasks such as catching fish. Again, I speak from experience. Now, the book recommendation based on this game is a little bit different because it's not the fictional kind of story that the rest of these books are, but I have to recommend this little companion book when it comes to Animal Crossing. This is Animal Crossing New Horizons Pro Island Designer. And the reason why I have to recommend this one is because if I had this book earlier in my Animal Crossing journey, I would have saved so much time. I've said multiple times on my channel that Animal Crossing does not give you very clear instructions on how to play Animal Crossing. It just kind of tells you to do something and then it's like you're on your own from here, without actually telling you how to do it. And what this book does is basically compile together all the tips and tricks that you would need to create an incredible island, which is definitely something that I needed because I see all of these Animal Crossing video island tours and they just look incredible, and I'm just like, how on earth did people create that? I need to know. And so this book can definitely help with that. This gives you so many ideas, inspiration for what you can do with your house, some tips and tricks about what to sell and when to get the most out of your items. And I just think that it is a really cool little book to have, especially if you are wanting some inspiration about what to do with your island and your house. I know that I'm gonna actually be revisiting my house based on some of the tips that are in this book because my Animal Crossing house definitely needs a little revamp. So I'm going to be relying on this book for that. And honestly, if you need any kind of motivation, inspiration, or just want to have a little snoop, then I definitely recommend this book alongside your game of Animal Crossing. Okay, so next up we have a game which is a pretty big franchise and one that is much beloved, and that is Zelda. With Zelda, we are picking up speed a little bit because this one is an action-packed adventure game, but it is one that does still have the cozy vibes and a very whimsical fantasy element. As you can tell, I'm very much into the whimsical fantasy. But it's so easy to escape into this world and just get sucked into a whole story and adventure that you cannot escape from for a good few hours. And especially with the new one coming out, I feel like so many of us are going to get sucked into this game for hours and just spend many a day within this fantasy world, exploring new lands and fighting monsters and going on all of these adventures. But for the times when you don't want to be playing it, but you still want the vibes, I would recommend reading The Sunbearer Trials by Aidan Thomas. This one is a Mexican-inspired fantasy full of trials and heroics. As each new decade begins, 10 people are chosen to compete within the Sunbearer Trials, the result of which being either carrying the light itself or becoming a sacrifice, depending on whether you succeed or fail within these trials. When two unexpected competitors are chosen to enter these trials, we follow their unlikely journey, the many issues they come across along the way, and their attempt at survival within this very high-stakes situation. This is a story that's full of grand heroics and the need to be the best of the best, which I think is definitely the vibe of Zelda 2. Both of them seem to have this idea of needing to save the world or save a person, going on a grand adventure to succeed in something, needing to fight past this big problem, this trial of sorts, to succeed and become a hero at the end. This is also a story with LGBTQ+ rep with a trans character that many love. It's witty, it's fast-paced, and it takes you on a fantastical quest unlike any other. So if you love Zelda, I feel like this could be a nice little break in between playing hours of that, but you still get the same sort of adventurous vibe from it. Next up we have Spiritfarer, and oh my goodness, this is just the definition of wholesome, because the entire point of this game is to build a boat, befriend some spirits, and then just care for them and guide them safely to the afterlife. That is the whole point of it. It is so cute and wholesome that the entire point of the game is just to make some friends and to look after them. And so on a very similar sort of vibe, we have Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune. Spiritfarer just had to be paired up with this book because poor Wallace doesn't realise he's dead until the literal Grim Reaper turns up and is like, hey, do you fancy going to your funeral? And he still doesn't want to believe it until a very peculiar tea shop owning person offers to help him through to the afterlife, and he still doesn't want to believe it, and so he is given 7 days to reach the afterlife. And within those 7 days, little old Wallace is determined to live his not quite alive life to the fullest. And we're just following his story as he comes to accept that, goes on these little adventures before he actually passes on to the afterlife. And I just think that this game and this book have this wonderful ability of making a really scary concept seem quite comforting. It's the idea of companionship and things not actually being as scary as it seems, and providing us with a bittersweet scenario that you can't help but root for the characters within, even if you don't necessarily know what the best outcome would be for them. It's a very particular balance that TJ Klune manages to find and matches the game Spiritfarer exactly, so if you like that game then I would definitely recommend this book. And then finally we have one of my most recent additions to my gaming list of sorts. This one is Cult of the Lamb. Now bear with me while I explain this one, because the point of this game is literally to create a cult, which sounds questionable, but it's cute. In this game, you start out as a lamb that is about to be sacrificed as part of a cult, but then the god that you are being sacrificed to actually decides to favour you and make him one of his kind of accomplices, and asks you to create a cult for him. So you do, and the entire point of the game is to create a successful cult. And it's kind of like one of those farming games that everybody seems really addicted to, because you do quite literally farm in it at one point, but also you're just looking after this community of people, making sure that you are gathering followers, keeping them fed, nourished, hygienic, and just keeping things running really, while also going on little adventures, small expeditions of sorts to gather materials, gather supplies, gather information, and it's just really satisfying to work your way through it. Now the tone of this game really reminds me of The Library of the Dead by T.L. Hutchu, because this is a book that simultaneously has these understated moments of wholesomeness within it, while also having an overall atmosphere of dark and occult-like scenarios, let's say. Set in Edinburgh's historical streets, we are following Roper, who has quite a dark magic. She can communicate with ghosts, and through being able to do so, she is trying to help solve the mystery behind why all the ghosts are so unsettled. There's clearly something going on and they are really unnerved, and it's starting to affect the living now as well. And as she's delving into this investigation, we end up visiting an occult library, discovering hidden hidden magic, all while reading of friend and family relationships that are just unrivaled. Both the book and the game rival the light and dark elements perfectly, and always keep you on your toes while providing an addictive story to sink into that's super fast paced, but also one that you can easily slot back into without even giving it a second thought. And they're both ones that I think would be a really fun, cozy game for people who like just a little bit of a darker element to it as well. So these are all of my cozy book recommendations to go alongside some of those cozy games that you play in. But I would love to hear not only your game recommendations, because I'm always down to add more to my list of things to try, but I would also love to hear if you have any pairings of your own. I think it's so fun to pair up games and books because they're both just very interesting ways of storytelling, and I feel like as a community we all just naturally gravitate towards those kind of things. So if you can come up with any pairings of your own, whether it's for games or books that I've already mentioned or completely different ones, I'd love to hear them all down in the comments below, because I know that I personally get a lot of joy switching between books and games within my downtime, and I think a lot of you guys are going to be able to relate. So do come and chat to me down below. But for now I shall leave you to grab your books and your games, because I've got a feeling you're going to want to after this video. Thank you to the lovely folks over at Book Break for hosting me, and I shall see you all very soon. Goodbye!